Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jnanatamalandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chaksamunanitamina Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Bandham Mam Jayate Girim Yakripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Dinitarino Vanchakalpatirubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bharevacha Patitanam Bhadivyo Vaishnavidyo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasri Gaura Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Indra Swami has so kindly shared these opportunities to speak about the Lord's pastimes with Padahari and myself. Of course, Maharaj is so vastly knowledgeable in the philosophy of presenting everything very wonderfully. And Padahari Prabhu has this amazing ability, as we saw yesterday, to weave that philosophy into the songs and the purports that go with those songs. I'm just a storyteller. So, but I did have a challenge today. Excuse me. We were asked to speak about the life of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu each of the days that we're here. But today's the disappearance day of Madhavendra, who of course is very intricately connected with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I asked, and you know, what do I do? Let's speak about Madhavendra. There's so much there to say about Mahaprabhu. We have many days ahead. So by his blessings and the mercy of all the Vaishnavas, I'll say a few words about the glorious, significantly important pastimes of Madhavendra. In the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his seniors, his parents, his gurus, all of his personal associates and servants and all, they all take their birth prior to the appearance of Mahaprabhu. As Prabhupada has many times said, whenever the king goes anywhere, his entourage goes with him. So this means that they come and they set the stage. They arrange everything, put everything in place. Many of them just becoming the structure on which Mahaprabhu's Leela will take place in. Whenever Krishna himself descends to the earth, he sends down his elders first, these personalities, mother, father, guru, all these persons that would be objects of his respect. Mahaprabhu's Leela, partially, is to show the example of a devotee. How to respect elders, how to regard them. So he has to have elders in order to show how to respect them. So these personalities come ahead of time. Madhavendra Puri, Ishwar Puri, Sachimata, Jagannath Mishra, Advaitacharya, these are all personalities Chaitanya Charitamrita explains that come prior to the Lord's appearance to enhance the activities of the Lord's Leela. Later in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami explains it like this. He says, whenever the son of the king of Braja decides to appear on earth in order to fulfill a particular desire, he first sends down his seniors. I will briefly name some of them, for it is not possible to mention anyone. And then he does just that. Sachi Devi, Jagannath Mishra, Madhavendra Puri, Keshava Bharati, Ishwara Puri, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, Acharya Ratna, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, Haridas Thakur. This list of names here, we could go on for days speaking the pastimes of each of these individuals, and they are significant factors in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we hear every one of those names, we should be able to draw on our mind, oh yeah, it's passed like that. We should be that familiar with these individuals. This is our heritage. So it shouldn't be something that, oh yeah, one day I heard about, we should know who these people are. So Madhavendra Puri himself, he was a disciple of Lakshmipati Tirtha. And he himself had many very significant disciples. Ishwar Puri is the most prominent that we're familiar with. Advaita Acharya was his disciple. Paramananda Puri, Brahmananda Puri, Sri Ranga Puri, Pundarik Vidyanidhi, such an amazing, colorful individual. Raghupati Upadhyaya, and so many others like this. These senior people in the Pastimes of Mahaprabhu. And he had many disciples, but the two most prominent disciples were Ishwar Puri and Advaita Acharya. And they were the chief disciples that Madhavendra Puri counted on for everything, that he imbibed with pushing forward this mission. The various devotees in the Gora Mandala Bhumi and Chaturatma, Jagannath Puri, were all connected with him through these pastimes and through these particular disciples. He had one particular disciple, of course, Ishwar Puri. Now, Ishwar Puri took up the conjugal mood. We know from the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that there are different moods of devotional service that one can render that service in. Ishwar Puri took up that conjugal mood, whereas Advaita Acharya took up a mood of servitude and friendship. So each of these individuals have a particular rasa that they're key in, that they're predominant in. And these two devotees mentioned here are the prominent disciples, and they both had completely different moods, but both had significant parts to play. Now, Madhavendra Puri himself was completely filled with the love of God. Vrindavan Dasa mentions that Madhavendra Puri's body was completely full of divine love, as were his followers. Wouldn't that be amazing if it could be said, yes, Srila Prabhupada was filled with divine love from Mahaprabhu, and all of his followers were too. We should strive to fulfill that obligation. Vrindavan Das Thakur continues, he displayed uncommon love of Godhead. If he saw a dark blue rain cloud, he would fall down on the ground unconscious, thinking it could be none different than Rajendra Nandana. Day and night, he was constantly intoxicated, drinking the ambrosia of Krishna Prema. Intoxicated by drinking the ambrosia of Krishna Prema. Vrindavan Das Thakur is so poetic in his writings here. Now, prior to the time of Madhavendra Puri, the mood of Madhurya Rasa, of conjugal love, was not known in our particular line. The Madhvacharya Sampradaya did not have that flavor of that rasa present in it. And Madhavendra Puri was known for sowing that seed of Prem Bhakti. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became the towering tree, dropping these honey-sweet fruits, you could say, of prema upon everyone and every place that he went to. And he revealed this bhava, this mood of love, by appreciating the separation of Krishna. This is a very deep understanding of love for Krishna, that appreciating mostly by separation. This was a complete mood of the gopis. It doesn't take but a very simple study of the pastimes of Krishna's Raj Leela. You see that the gopis were always merged in a mood of separation. Matter of fact, they appreciated their relationship with Krishna much more when that mood of separation was present. And so this mood was embraced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this was introduced into the Madhvacharya Sampradaya. Thus our line became known as the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, mixing of the teachings of Madhvacharya with the mixing of the teachings of Gaura, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes a very interesting statement on this point. He says the feelings of separation from Krishna, our transcendental Vipralampa, is the only practice by which the spirit soul can achieve perfection. It's a very serious statement. The only practice by which the spirit soul can achieve perfection. Material feelings of separation give rise to a despondency that reveals the attachment one has for matter, whereas the despondency that results from the feelings of separation from Krishna are the best proof of one's desire to bring pleasure to Krishna's senses. The desire to bring pleasure to Krishna's senses was fully shown by Madhavendra Puri because he was the root source of this feeling. He is an ideal example to follow for anyone who wishes to serve the Lord. It is especially worth noting that Mahaprabhu and his close followers later adopted this example and made it their standard. We all know from reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita, particularly the Antya-lila, when Mahaprabhu was beginning to wind up his pastimes, that this mood of separation was what really fired the love of God present in Mahaprabhu. This came from Madhavendra Puri. And as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says here, how does he say it? This is the best proof of one's desire to bring pleasure to the senses of Krishna. So, are we advancing in devotional life? How do we know? By how much we want to serve Krishna. And how do we give that service to Krishna? By this mood of separation. Very amazing aspect of love of God that's only present in this particular way. So the nature of Madhavendra Puri's service to his guru, at the initiations yesterday, Srila Gurudev was speaking very strongly about the relationship with the guru, the meditation on the guru, the service of the guru. So the nature of Ishwar Puri's personal service to his guru was greatly mentioned by Kaviraj Goswami in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He points out that how, as Madhavendra Puri neared the final stage of his life, his physical body became invalid and was not able to move or function. We saw this in the life of our own Srila Prabhupada, that in the very end he was not able to move physically, and the disciples had to do everything, from feeding to dressing, to cleaning, to bathing, everything, because he could not do these things for himself anymore. This was the circumstance with Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri was attended to by his most prominent disciple, Ishwar Puri, at that time. And Ishwar Puri was, as the Chaitanya Charitamrita says, personally cleaning the stool and urine that would come from the body of Madhavendra Puri, bathing and changing and all of these things. And constantly chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We also saw this in the departure lila of Srila Prabhupada, that he wanted constantly, there was kirtan going on in the room. Very soft, very quiet kirtan. But he wanted that constantly. I was so fortunate to take part in one of those kirtans once. But Prabhupada had that going while all of these activities of his departure were going, just as we see here was so in the pastimes of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri, as a result of this, became very, very pleased with the service of Ishwar Puri. Similarly, we should understand in the pastimes of Srila Prabhupada how satisfied he was with the service of those disciples that were his intimate service there at the end. Sometimes this may be brought into question, but there should be no doubt. The example is given here in Shastra. Madhavendra Puri was completely indebted, pleased, satisfied, and happy with what was being done for him by Ishwar Puri. So, in this way, he blessed him. He said, may you constantly have Krishna Prema. What a blessing from the Guru. And you rendered service to your Guru, and he says, may you have Krishna Prema. This is what we're all striving for. This is why we take to the path of bhakti. This is why we embrace the principles of devotional service, to develop prema. It may be a long way off, maybe on the horizon, that's all right. But we have that goal. Just like some of you who come here like myself, and Butter Hart, all the way from Florida, it's such a long distance. But we knew, okay, first we get on the plane, then we get in Atlanta, then from Atlanta, we'll land in El Paso, and then we get in the car and drive to the place, just all there, just on the horizon, I see it's coming. So some travel is involved, some difficulty. You know, one friend of mine was stuck in the Dallas airport for 5 hours, 5 hours in the Dallas airport. But El Paso's just on the horizon. I see it. It'll come. It'll come. So we have to keep that in mind. Okay, we may not be at the level of Krishna Prema yet. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Some of you are. But for most of us, it's on the horizon. But to get that blessing from the Guru. Yes, may you achieve that. This we've all been given by God. So, in this way, he gave him that blessing. And thus, by the grace of his spiritual master, Ishwar Puri became a great example of the love of God that would eventually come to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, Nityananda, very interesting. Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri were God lovers. Though Nityananda, quite by accident, he met Madhavendra Puri. They were both doing parikrama, doing travels to all the different holy places. Now, the body of Madhavendra Puri was surcharged with love for Krishna, constantly emanating. And of course, at this time, Madhavendra Puri was not traveling alone. He was traveling with his prominent disciples. Some number of sannyasis always traveled with him. And they were also similarly filled with that same mood. This should be the example that the disciple says, is the mood they have is the mood they see in their guru. The guru is very much attached to a particular project, to a particular service, to a particular bhava. That should be the mood of the disciple. So, in this way, the disciples of Madhavendra were also in that mood. And Madhavendra Puri says he ate no other food. Okay, what did he eat? Oh, let's find out what Madhavendra Puri ate. Except tasting the mellows of the qualities of Krishna. That was his sustenance. Not eating this, that, he's not aspiring, whom will the groceries be served. Oh, I heard there's cheesecake for lunch. Oh, I can't wait till the evening puris come out. There's a devotee, in Alachua. He has the exact timing on when to be there when the plate is brought out, the prasadam is distributed. You will always see him the very first in line. He knows, okay, it's luncheon time, it's hot puri and milk time, it's khichdi and whatever. So this was not the food of Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri's food was the mellows of the qualities of Shri Krishna. Matter of fact, Krishnadas Kaviraj goes so far as to say that his holy body was the place where Krishna's pastimes appeared. And then there was no greater praise of his love for Krishna than to say that Advaitacharya was his disciple. These statements are made by Krishnadas Kaviraj, so we should take them very seriously. Now, when Nityananda bumped into, and maybe some of you have had that experience, I know I've had that experience doing Govardhan Parakram, and suddenly you bump into Vaishasika. Vaishasika and I go back a long ways, and so it's, oh, I haven't seen him forever. You know, you're not expecting it. You didn't know he was going to be there. Oh, just happened to bump into him. Another time, there's so many devotees you'll bump into like that, you know. Come to a festival here. Oh, Prabhu, you're here. Oh, wow, this is great, you know. So when Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri encountered each other, Nityananda actually, he lost external consciousness just by viewing the body and the symptoms of Lord God present in Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri, as soon as he saw Nityananda, he also lost consciousness, became completely oblivious to the world around him. So these two great souls, they encounter each other and they just faint. I mean, all the disciples have been greatly concerned. I don't know what's going on. But as soon as they regain their external consciousness, and it doesn't say how long, sometimes we read that the personality loses their consciousness for hours, for days. But it just mentions it. Excuse me. And once they regained their consciousness, they saw that all the disciples, led by Ishwar Puri, were all weeping in tears of concern and bliss, both, you know. And then they rose from the ground, and Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri embraced each other. As they began to embrace each other, great tears of ecstasy flowed from their eyes. So much so was their hankering to be in each other's company. And these two great teachers the path of bhakti, upon embracing each other, again fell to the ground. But this time in full consciousness, rolling in the dust of this holy place, back and forth. You can just imagine the sight. Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri tightly embraced, rolling in the ground, the dust covering their bodies, and the disciples standing in amazement and cheering and just, great jubilation and satisfaction. Divine love manifesting in every manner. Shouting words of great joy and great thunder, Vrindavan Dasa says. Vrindavan Dasa continues, he says, tears of love flowed from their eyes, and the earth herself, Mother Bhumi, considered herself greatly blessed to have the tears of love of God from Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri fall upon her form. It mentions that there was no end to the display of ecstasies that manifested in the bodies of Nityananda and Madhavendra Puri as they rolled there, shivering in each other's company and appreciating each other so much. How is this possible, you might ask? Navnasa, of course, says the reason it is possible is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was dancing in their hearts. Mahaprabhu hasn't made his appearance yet. But Mahaprabhu himself was dancing. The very energy, the presence of Mahaprabhu brought such love of God to them. He was dancing in their hearts, and it brought all this ecstasy to them. Nityananda finally calmed himself. And he looked at the form of Madhavendra Puri. And he said, today, only today, I have achieved the complete fulfillment of all the places of pilgrimage that I have performed. For today, my eyes have seen the beautiful lotus feet of Madhavendra Puri. My life is glorified by witnessing such love of God as is present in Madhavendra Puri. Madhavendra Puri was, of course, embarrassed. He grabbed Nityananda, embraced him close to his chest, and could utter no words of reply. Nityananda got the upper hand on that one. Madhavendra Puri then expressed how he had no desire, no wish to be released from the embrace of Nityananda. Ishwar Puri, Ramananda Puri, all the disciples are around, and they were all immediately attracted to Nityananda as well. They could see their guru, Madhavendra Puri, had such an attraction, such love for Nityananda, naturally they did as well. And they didn't ever want to be separated from Nityananda. They thought this is such a wonderful personality. Although they themselves also in their travels met many renowned saints, many great sadhus, but they were not able to find Krishna Prema in any of those personalities. And this is what they were searching for. By meeting those unfortunate souls, those wicked souls, all they gained from them was grief, unhappiness. Isn't that sometimes the fact maybe you have some business responsibilities, and you have to deal with some persons, and it's like, there are some people where I work that, because I've been there for a number of years, I regularly see these people, and they think themselves to be my friends. And they come and they want to share this, that, and the other with me. It's just so painful. It's required, but it's painful. Trust me. So this was the experience that Brahmananda Puri and Ishwar Puri and all these other disciples were experiencing, meeting all of these so-called sadhus. But when they met Nityananda through the mercy of their own spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, they felt great satisfaction, great love, great bliss. They felt as if they had been delivered from a forest of suffering, relieved of all of the difficulties, and had now seen the manifestation of love for Krishna. So after this initial meeting, for some days, Nityananda traveled with Madhavendra Puri, and they just dove deep in the discussions of Krishna's pastimes. Just imagine, if you can, for a moment. I mean, we have a little katha here, and we talk different things and try to discuss the pastimes of the Lord. Imagine these two personalities, Nityananda, the direct manifestation of Lord Balaram, and Madhavendra Puri, the manifestation, the tree of bhakti, discussing these intimate pastimes of Krishna. I mean, it's just an amazing thing that comes in our mind here, you know. Here again, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes that Madhavendra Puri's devotional service is wonderful to speak of, and anyone that speaks of it or hears of it is greatly benefited by that. Sometimes he would act just like a drunkard, and of course this fit right with the character of Nityananda. Actually, there was one time, Mahaprabhu, this is a later Leelas in Navadvip, Mahaprabhu would send out Nityananda and Haridas to court to do preaching. And of course, they would go out and encounter all of these different circumstances, and we know the one famous circumstance they encountered Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai were drunk on liquor, and Nityananda said, "Oh, this is a great chance, let's approach them." And of course, they were chased away. We know the whole story. We won't go into that. That's a whole class in and of itself. And as they returned that evening, Mahaprabhu asked, "So, what is the report?" We all had experience of this in our Sankirtan days. Come back at night, the Sankirtan leader, the temple president. Okay, how did you do? Who did you meet? How did it go? So Mahaprabhu inquired. Haridas complained like anything. You said, you send me out with this drunkard on love of God, Nityananda, and we encountered these drunkards, Jagai and Madai. I'm the only sober man in the group. So this was the love of God that Madhavendra Puri also manifested, that kind of drunken mood. And Nityananda, sometimes intoxicated, would stagger and stumble around and, fall down to the ground and, laugh out loud for no apparent reason. These are all different symptoms that describe love of God. Love of God is very unusual sometimes. Some of the symptoms described in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are very unusual. Believe it or not, back in the day, we used to actually sell the nectar of devotion in the airports. Such a high esoteric book. I don't know how we were selling it. But I remember being in the airport one time, and a man came up and said, "I have a question for you guys." Okay. I got this book from you, Nectar Devotion, and I read it. I'm trying to understand, how is belching a sign of love of God? Very good question. Come to our temple on Sunday time. So at any rate, all of these different symptoms are manifest by both Nityananda and by Madhavendra Puri. And it mentions the brotherhood of disciples witnessed this and could do nothing but in amazement chant the holy names of the Lord, intoxicated by the sweet taste of divine love. And as a result, they knew not what is day or what is night. They completely lost all track of time. And Vrindavan Das Thakur poses a question to us. He says, who can understand the conversations between Madhavendra Puri and Nityananda? Now, if any of you think you can't, please raise your hand. We have a star here. So he poses this question that how is it possible to understand these talks between Madhavendra Puri and Nityananda? Only one person understands them. That is Krishna. Imagine that. Madhavendra Puri, of course, he couldn't bear the separation from Nityananda. He took constant delight in having his company. And then he himself reiterated what the disciples had said. Said, although I have traveled to many holy tirthas, I could find no divine love of God such as yours, Nityananda. None anywhere. Having obtained such a friend as you, Nityananda, I have realized the true mercy of Krishna. Krishna is so kind. Wherever one can get the association of Nityananda, that place is more than Vaikuntha, more than all the holy places. More than all the holy places combined. If one hears of the devotion of a devotee such as Nityananda, he is sure to attain Shri Krishna Chandra. Krishnadas Kaviraj emphasizes this point all throughout the Chaitanya Charitamrita. One has to have an attraction and deep love for Nityananda in order to get love of Godhead, because Nityananda gives us love for Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu delivers to us love for Shri Krishna. Madhavendra Puri then concludes with one very important statement. Anyone who has the least bit of aversion to Nityananda can never get any love for Krishna, even if he is a so-called devotee of Krishna. So we must understand by the instructions of Madhavendra Puri that we must develop love for Lord Nityananda. If we don't, love of God's not possible. This is reiterated by all the acharyas, particularly here in this pastime. It goes on like this. Now, Madhavendra Puri didn't stop there. It mentions that he went on day and night glorifying Lord Nityananda and serving Lord Nityananda with great love and great attention. They were God brothers. God brothers do this. You know, they serve each other. Nityananda Prabhu thought of himself, thought of Madhavendra Puri as his own guru. And he tried to engage in serving him. This is also the nature of relationships with God brothers. So in this way, these two souls were absorbed in the love of God and absorbed in serving each other and completely oblivious to time and daytime, nighttime, and this day, that, and anyway, after passing their time together in this way for some time, Nityananda set out on a journey to the south of India to see the bridge that Lord Ram had constructed, and he wanted to go and have darshan there. Nityananda did darshan of all these different holy places. We should understand that this isn't just something we do. All of our previous acharyas have done like this. Actually, one time, I was in Vrindavan and I asked Vishwambar Goswami. Vishwambar Goswami was the head of the Radharaman temple during my time, the father of Padmanath Goswami, who's there now. And I said to him one morning, I said, you know, we see that all these sadhus here in Vrindavan, they're going to all the different temples and going to the holy places. Did Prabhupada do like this? He said, yes. He said, every morning Prabhupada would go to all the different temples, just like everyone does, offers obeisances, collect whatever necessities. He was living the life of a rich person, just like you're trying to do. So we see that this was done. Nityananda was doing this pilgrimage. He was going to South India. So it came time for him to leave the association of Madhavendra. After their separation, it mentions that for some days neither of them could think of anything except God. Completely forgetting their own selves, they passed the subsequent days in great agony and great separation. It was almost as if it was impossible for them to sustain this mood of separation. Vrindavan Das Thakur makes a very amazing statement here. He says, whoever hears this account of Madhavendra Puri and Nityananda Prabhu with faith and devotion obtains the treasure of love of God. Now this is what we all want, love of God. So here it is. You hear this passage. But there's a caveat. There's always a caveat. You know? You can't get the lottery ticket that's got $1 million unless you buy the ticket. You know, it's not just somebody's not going to hand it to you. So here, by hearing about Madhavendra Puri and Nityananda, you can get love of God. If you listen with faith and devotion. Very simple. Faith that it's true, and devotion that these two personalities are such wonderful souls. So, anyway, so after quite some time of making a very extensive tour of India, Madhavendra Puri went to Vrindavan. He spent the bulk of his life there in Vrindavan and Orissa. In Vrindavan, he began the work that would be continued later by Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. And he would wander from grove to grove in Vrindavan, calling out the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, waiting for the indications to where these places were. This is an amazing thing. You know, we now go to, we're staying in Vrindavan, we're going to go to Govardhan, we look for the road sign, you turn to the left here, okay, Radha going here. That's how we get around. During the time of the Goswamis, they would simply call out the names of Krishna, and Krishna would direct them. Lokanath Goswami carried his deity with him, and he would wait for the deity. Where do I go? Oh, you go this place. No, that kund over there. The deity was telling him where all these places were. All of these different personalities were not following some charted roadmap. They were following the dictation of the Lord as he directed them to uncover all the holy places. When Madhavendra Puri would come to such a place, he would faint in ecstasy, and then he would know, yes, this is that place. So, one time, Madhavendra Puri was sitting at Govardhan Hill. Actually, the place where he was sitting is marked. You can go there. It's a very nice bhajan kutir there. He was sitting there, and he had a dream. And in that dream, the deity of Sri Gopal instructed him that I've been buried for so long here. You bring some workers and you uncover me and install me on the top of Govardhan Hill. So he gathered the different workers, went to the spot indicated in the dream, and began to dig. Carefully, of course, digging for the deity. And you just imagine digging. Oh, there's the top knot. Digging. Oh, there's the forehead. Digging. And so on like this, they uncovered the deity of Sri Gopal. Madhavendra Puri placed him on top of Govardhan Hill and began the worship of the grand Anukut ceremony. Of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita gives it just a wonderful, wonderful explanation of this pastime. Very, very detailed, all the different avenues. Actually, very good instruction on how to worship the deity is found in this particular section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Wonderful, wonderful detail is there about how Madhavendra Puri did everything, how he engaged others in doing everything, and what was the order in which he did all of this. So this Anukut ceremony he had, very, very wonderful. All the villagers brought all the stocks of, it was almost identical to the Anukut ceremony of Govardhan Puja itself. And anyway, very, very important festival. And there's the detail is there, and one should take some time today and read that Chaitanya Charitamrita section. There's much to cover about Madhavendra Puri. Now, in Jagannath Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed an intense movement of Virahabhava, of this mood of separation. And this increased unlimitedly as he heard different verses from different Shastras. His associate Suru Damodar was very, very expert. Ramananda Roy also at quoting particular verses to enhance the mood. And one of his verses was a verse spoken by Madhavendra Puri. And that verse, O compassionate Lord of the poor and humble, O Lord of Mathura, when shall I see you again? Without seeing you, my heart has become very much afflicted. Oh, my beloved, I am overwhelmed. What shall I do now? This mood expressed in this prayer has been analyzed and examined and written about by many of our acharyas. And this mood embraces the very mood of Madhavendra Puri that he presented, and it was passed on through Ishwar Puri to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So much so that here in this verse was one of the things that would enhance the mood of separation that Mahaprabhu felt. Krishnadas Kaviraj describes it like this. He says that as the diamond, the Kaustubha jewel, is the most precious amongst all rare jewels, this sloka of Rasakavya is the best verse in the treasury for all poetry about rasa. This verse, of course, we know from reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, it was spoken by Srimati Radharani herself. So it's her, you could say, pathetic cry to Shamsundar, who had gone to Mathura and left her there. And this was the mood that was embraced and repeated by Madhavendra Puri. And so this is a very, very essential verse for this mood of separation that Mahaprabhu manifested. It says that even reciting a few words of this sloka, not even getting the entire sloka, which the Sanskrit on this is very, very beautiful. It's one of those long meter verses, you know. And not even the entire verse would go, and Mahaprabhu would become completely filled with this intense love. This was the same way that Madhavendra Puri experienced when he was understanding this as well. Krishnadas Kaviraj says that this verse is what Madhavendra Puri uses to teach what is how to achieve Krishna Prema by cultivating intense feeling of separation from Krishna. This is pivot point, if you will, of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Now, when we speak about Madhavendra Puri and this great appreciation that he had for his servant Ishwara Puri, so much so that Ishwara Puri became a prominent personality in the Sampradaya and initiated Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When we speak about that, we have to look at the flip side, and that is Ramchandra. Ramchandra Puri was also a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. He was always a little critical and always trying to think he could bring a better scenario to the situation. Madhavendra Puri is on his departure, winding up his lila, experiencing this great mood of Baba, this great mood of separation. Ishwar Puri is encouraging him in this mood. And Ramchandra Puri comes in and encourages him, my dear spiritual master, why are you crying? You should be fixed in Brahman. Asochati na kanchati. Neither happiness nor distress. By doing this, you will. Madhavendra Puri was not very happy with this. I mean, you can imagine. He's in this great mood. He understands that he's getting ready to depart from this world. He has his disciple Ishwara Puri enhancing the mood that he wants for this departure. And here comes this Ramchandra Puri, giving him a completely different type of instruction. Not very much appreciated. So, as Madhavendra Puri blessed Ishwara Puri, may you achieve Krishna Prema, he gave a blessing. He gave a statement to Ramchandra Puri. He said, get out of my sight. Leave. Not what you want to hear from your spiritual master. Oh God, you go away. If I depart this world in your presence, I will not attain my goal. Please go away. I mean, and Ramchandra Puri didn't get it. This is how dull-headed Ramchandra Puri was. He didn't get what was happening to him. He was being cut off from devotional mercy. He had cut himself off by his actions, but now he was being officially cut off by Madhavendra Puri. Go away, I can't see you. There was one disciple of Prabhupada that Prabhupada spoke like that. To be polite, I won't mention the names, but this disciple became a little full of his knowledge, a little full of his scholarship, and he asked Prabhupada to please bless him that he would find a bona fide spiritual master. Prabhupada said, I bless you that you go to hell. Not the type of blessing for spiritual master. At any rate, so in this way, Ramchandra Puri became fully embraced with this mood of dismissal of his guru. And as a result, Ramchandra Puri became the worshipable deity of all fault finders in the world. We had one godbrother that many years ago, he was quite a critical character. He was a lovable guy, but he was quite critical. And we used to tease him that you must have the deity of Ramchandra Puri in your drawer. Ramchandra Puri, Ishwar Puri went on to become the guru of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, guiding him. Ramchandra Puri thought, I am the godbrother of Ishwar Puri. This is his disciple, I should guide him too. We all know the story. He would go to Mahaprabhu's ashram and he would see there's ants on the floor. Oh, there's ants in your house. You're a sannyasi, you're eating sweets in secret. That's why there are ants here. I don't know how many of you have been to India, there's ants everywhere. I stay in one very nice place there. Giri Raj Goswami allows me to stay in his house. It's a very nice place, very well taken care of. But I have to keep all the bhoga for my deities very tightly sealed because the ants are expert. They'll find it. So, even in my own home in Alatra, I have this one little section where the ants come, little tiny ants. They come and they find their way to the toaster oven. I don't know how they get there. You know, the toaster was in the middle of the room, but They manage, this is the nature of ants. So Ramchandra Puri instead, oh, there's ants, you're a sannyasi, you're eating sweets. This is not very good for you. So just imagine this. And of course, Ramchandra Puri didn't stop at that. He criticized all the Vaishnavas. He would invite them for prashadam. Oh, come to my home, I'll give you nice prashadam. There, have some nice subji. Good. Would you like some more? Yeah. Have some more for us. No, please, take some more for us. I don't know how many of you have seen that famous puppet show, you know? More words, no, what's up here, more words, what's up here? And then the puppet show, the little puppets have popcorn, they're just throwing it. It's a great, all this kind of television thing. At any rate, so, and then after the devotees went, oh, I'm trying to go to just see what a neophyte you are. You eat so much prashadam. You just force it. No, you're supposed to be some kind of renunciate, some devotee, this was Ramchandra. We want to be disciples of our spiritual master, following the mood of Ishwar. We don't want to be disciples of our spiritual master, following the mood of Ramchandra, which means we have to be very cautious and not criticize and fault find each other. Very, very bad thing for us to make a part of our habit, because then we become disciples of Ramchandra. And instead, we should strive to become disciples of Ishwar. So, we won't go on too long to finish for today. It's right on time too. I've never done that. We have a couple of other opportunities this week, and we're going to speak about some wonderful pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his Navadvip Puja. So we'll all look forward to that. Thank you very much. All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri.
Any question answer time?
Huh?
Any questions or no?
Prashadam now?
Yeah.
You have some announcements?
Thank you, Chaturatma Prabhu, for giving this class on Madhavendra Puri on his disciplines. We'll be serving the prasadam in the prasadam hall now for the next 1 hour, and then we have a break. We understood that last 2 days were very busy for devotees, and some of you are working today. And we have our Kirtan Mela from 5 to 8 in the evening, and dinner at 8. Lunch will be served from 1:30 to 2:30. Thank you.